Dana White just announced some absolutely massive fights, giving us the first 3 pay-per-view headliners of 2024. AKA, we now know every single UFC pay-per-view headliner up until UFC 300, which itself should be a massive card. What were the 3 fights that were just announced? Well, for UFC 297 in January, we have Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight title. Then for UFC 298, likely in February, is going to be Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, and UFC 299 in March is going to be Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera 2. Now, let's talk about each of these fights a little bit. For Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, I think we're all happy this was the fight that was made. I think most of us agree this was the fight to make, especially since, Israel Adesanya just got dominated by Sean Strickland. I think most of us agree that rematch wasn't deserving, like Dana White was initially hinting at after the event. And I think most of us are happy that's not going to Chimaev either after his absolutely embarrassing performance against Kamaru Usman that did result in a robbery victory. So, as MMA Guru likes to say, we got justice for du Plessis. I think all of us are happy with that. Now, how does this fight go? I'm just going to give some early predictions here. I'm going to say maybe around 2 or 3 knockout or total knockout for Dricus du Plessis. The reason I go with that is because, they're both pressure fighters, with the difference being Sean Strickland is a very balanced, composed pressure fighter, whereas Dricus du Plessis is more of this wild man who's going to run you down and swing at you, whereas Sean Strickland's more so going to walk you down and 1-2 you. And I think overall that is going to result in Sean Strickland actually getting overwhelmed. I know that doesn't happen a lot, but I think that's what you could actually see here. I think Dricus could just potentially be too crazy for him. And again, so Dricus, I think around 2 or 3 KO or TKO, I don't think is totally unreasonable. Now, for UFC 298, Volkanovski versus Topuria. Again, I don't think anyone was surprised with this fight. Everyone knew this was the fight to make, but I mainly want to get into what if Volkanovski loses here, since I think that's very possible. I don't know what my pick would be here. I'm not as confident as du Plessis winning 297 as I am in either Topuria or Volk winning in 298, but if Volk does lose, I really hope he retires, man. I don't want to see him go the way of Tony Ferguson and go on this brutal losing streak and just take so much extra brain damage and just ruin your actual health and, all of those things. Plus, it's just horrible to see those losses for the fans. Since, I do think it's possible, Topuria, he's a very heavy hitter, especially at featherweight, and, it's possible that, fighters, they get that 1 KO and their chin is just never the same, and I think that is totally possible here, that Topuria could totally catch a Volk at some point during their fight, knock him out cold, just like Makhachev did in their rematch. And so if that happens, again, Volk should retire, 100%. I don't want to see him keep fighting if that happens. After Makhachev Volk 2, he was saying, I really had to take this fight. I don't feel right if I'm not fighting. So I get that he wants to fight, and that really makes me worry. He's going to go like Tony Ferguson. But I think if you can try and transfer that into coaching, like, say, Glover Teixeira did, he recognized, I'm taking too much damage in these fights. We're going to just start going to coaching. That way I can still be in that fighting spirit without going and taking all that damage. I hope Volk can look at that example, do what Teixeira did, and maybe coach the next great featherweight like Glover Teixeira is now doing with Alex Pereira, the next potential light heavyweight champion of the world. And if that does happen, obviously the fight to make after that would be Holloway versus Topuria, which I think would be an absolute war, and I think that would absolutely be crazy if Holloway won. To have gone from champion years ago to finally becoming champion again years later, you don't see that very often. That would be a crazy fight too, and potentially a crazy result if Holloway takes that win, and Holloway is still fairly young. He could get on another title reign, and who knows, if Holloway starts another reign, does he potentially even surpass Volk if he can then get another couple title defenses in? You never know. But finally, on to UFC 299, Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera 2. I think most of us agree this was going to be the fight that was made. There's no surprise by it, but most of us also agree that this is not the fight to make, and this is a completely undeserving title shot. We saw Chito Vera get absolutely mauled by guys in the top 5 like Corey Sandhagen, and of course, he's not even top 5 ranked, right? That's not a good matchup to make. Well, obviously it's a good matchup to make in Dana White's eyes. He wants to keep the cuck Sean O'Malley, champion as long as he can, so he's going to try and give him easy fights, and so that's obviously why this fight has been made, and it's not going to a more deserving opponent like Corey Sandhagen, or, unfortunately, Merab. Well, at this point, it would be the winner of Merab's Huda. Aljo. But I think we could actually see a Chito Vera upset here, you know? I think there's actually a lot of parallels between this and Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya, since, you know, both that was a fight that Israel Adesanya was supposed to win. That was just supposed to add another number to his title defense count, just a filler fight. And that's, I feel like, what Dana White wants to happen here with Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley as well, you know? They're like, okay, here's a guy that Sean O'Malley should beat. Let's just let him have that and we can keep him as champion as long as possible. But Sean Strickland got that upset, and I think it's possible we see Chito Vera do the same. You know, he doesn't bleed. He's got a great chin. So I don't think we're going to see Sean O'Malley just snipe him and knock him out like he did Aljo, for example. And again, you could argue, you know, Sean O'Malley, he got a robbery victory over Jan, and then he got a fluke victory over Aljo. Does he really win against Chito Vera as well, since, you know, Chito Vera, yeah, beat him the first time, but that was also a fluke. So, you know, I guess it's a battle of the fluke here to see who gets it. So, yeah, that's my predictions. I'm probably going to have to go do Plessis. I'm not sure on Volk versus Topuria. I'm probably leaning Topuria. And then I think we could actually see a Chito Vera upset here for UFC 299. That would be my 3 picks. And so comment down below what you think about all of these fights. Were these the fights to make? Are you happy to see these fights? Without further ado, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.